What is also interesting is that there was kind of a
substitution of citizens and tourists, and with the transformation of the houses in
maybe the common audience that
if I have a dream, I have to fulfill it myself.
housing is now slowly transformed in something different.
When people don't like change management because it's work for them.
it's the democracy falling down. I don't know.
That was good, sir. So welcome to the seventh? Is it the seventh? I think the seventh assembly. The eighth assembly. I welcome and I ask all the audience and the visitors, please join us here for our discussion round. It's today about desires for a better living. We have here a lot of young people, students, and we want to discuss together with them the desires for a possible better living. So let me introduce, or maybe to the history of the assemblies. We had 7 assemblies until today. We always invite a group of experts that we invite from Vienna rather, or from other Austrian cities, together with experts and or activists from either Rome or, like today, Venice. So it's very important we thought that we bring together these two families from Vienna and Rome. And the goal is that here we try to find possible solutions how these two systems of Vienna and Rome could be brought together. So our guests today, this is here Katharina Weinberger-Lootsma. She comes from Linz, from the University of Arts in Linz, where we teach together and where the students are also coming from today. She's there a senior scientist at the University of Arts in Linz. For some years, she was curating and managing a very interesting exhibition space in a former gas station in Linz. Very interesting projects. So she is also a curator and cultural manager. And in Linz at the university, she is teaching architecture history. Left from me, there is André Krammer. He is an architect in Vienna, with an office in Vienna. He studied at the TU and the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. He is doing there several projects between urban planning, urban design, and he's doing a lot of writings. So he is also doing theory and teaching over there. For instance, writing for Der Rief, one of the most prominent, most important magazines about urban theories in Austria. And he has a PhD done with the nice title, Das wilde Wien, the wild Vienna. So how wild Vienna can be. Then left to André, there is Nicola Ussardi. He comes from Venice. He is an activist and a co-founder of ASC, the Summer Association of Squatting People, people squatting housing in houses in Venice. He's a basketballer, and he founded the so-called Carapace, a community space in Cannaregio. We have been there invited yesterday and got a very interesting tour. It's a community space, it's a children learning space, and it's a meeting space for the basketball player. So, as always, we ask before we start the discussion, we ask our guests to give a small statement about their story, their history, their relation to the exhibition, to a better living, or to the future. I would now ask André Krammer to start, please.
So thank you for the introduction. I think my role today could be to show you kind of a parallel development that took place in Vienna in the 20th century. So as you know and as you heard today, Vienna is very famous for the history of social housing, of Red Vienna in the interwar period. So the Red Vienna was much more than just housing. It was a kind of an idea of a new urban society. And I think it is understandable that it's well known, but it's not the whole story in a way, because that's the topic I was researching on the last 5-6 years, is that there was a kind of an informal urbanization. And this informal urbanization was a kind of was triggered by several crises in the 20th century, namely the First World War, the economic crisis at the end of the 20s, and the Second World War. So there were several waves of informal housing in Vienna. This kind of settlements that were erected by thousands of Viennese people were called wild settlements, because people in Vienna grabbed land, appropriated land, and to use it to grow vegetables in times when there was famine or a food shortage and housing shortage. So they had this. They had their small gardens. They had their huts erected, so small Brettelhäuser, as they were called, to live there. They had their vegetable. They grew vegetables, and they tried to survive in very different phases of their lives. And what a colleague and mine were discovering some years ago, more or less by chance, was that it was a widespread phenomenon. So it was not just this one settlement or the other settlement, but as we now know after our research, and my research is that there were over 100,000 Viennese people living in informal wild settlements. And if you compare it to the housing that was erected in Red Vienna, it's about 64,000 units. And about 200,000 people living in social housing. So it's two systems that are related to each other somehow, because it's not so far away, 100,000 and 200,000. And I have some pages here in order to give you some impressions how these settlements looked like. I just give it to you so you can give it vielleicht einfach in die Runde geben. Here you can see a timeline where you can see in blue this 3 major waves of wild settlement activity in Vienna, and you can see the parallel systems of housing production, political systems, and so on that took place. So if you want to take a look at it, it's a bit complicated, but to give you just some impression. And this is a very important map. It's a kind of a version of what you have seen today in the exhibition room. And I give it then to you, but you can see that this survey of balances of surface areas that were informal occupied were really a vast part of the city, so the inner periphery, as you could say. So the housing that was erected in the interwar period in Red Vienna was more central, and you had this housing blocks, the big blocks, more in the center of the city, and around the consolidated city you had these informal settlements. So this is really interesting, and they were developed in the same time. So over the interwar period and after 1945, there was again a huge wave of this housing. So I give it to you. So what we did, we tried, so I already told you about this, we tried to make quantitative analysis and see how, it's difficult to analyze how much Viennese were living informally in wild settlements, because informality is not so easy to check and to survey. but we made estimations, and so it's really this number about 100,000. And so our thesis, in a way, is also that the history of Red Vienna has to be written in another way, because it has to be recognized there was a parallel system of housing production. Here are some examples of these settlers' houses. You can see on the left side a very basic settlement, so very easy wooden shacks and so on. Some people lived in buses, in public buses that they used. You can see it on the picture if you look close. Then they made houses of self-fired mud bricks. So they had the possibility of consolidating their houses. So there was the different houses after 3 years, after 5 years, and so on. And on the right side, you can see really a house, a wild settlement house that was erected with craftsmen in the city. So there was kind of a slow change between the informal production of housing and then a more formalized one. And it's very important to know that these settlements were not erased. Some were erased, but really just a few of them. And most of them were formalized in the afterwar period. So starting with the early 60s, the municipality made infrastructural refurbishment, so there were the streets, the electricity, the water, and so on. And then it was legally formalized, which meant that it was they were transformed in a formal system, and many of these settlers had private contracts with the city. They were able to have property of their plot and of their house. So you could say that when all this movement started, it was kind of a right to the city movement, because this was really a time of the need, and they had to. There was a need for self-help, and over the decades of formalization, it is transforming in something different. And this is one of the main interests of my thesis also. What does it mean when these things are transformed? Yeah? Property-wise, structurally, and so on. And now these former wild settlements, were kind of informal social housing, is now slowly transformed in something different. And what is also interesting is that there was kind of an informal social infrastructure. So at the Wolfersberg settlement, for instance, they had a summer school that was then built in cooperation with the city. So there starts a cooperation between settlers and the city. And they used it for dancing, for choir concerts and so on, and for education, Volksbildung, so public education. So this is very interesting at this period when there was a kind of cooperation between the city, the municipality, and the settlers. And what is maybe well known is the phase of this cooperation between 1921 and 1923, where parts of the Social Democratic Party tried to help settlers and tried to cooperate. It's called the Siedlerbewegung, which was quite well known in research. But this took place for 3 years, and then it was cancelled in the mid of the 1920s, because the Red Vienna was concentrating of this multi-story housing projects that you saw today. This is an interesting question why they did that, so maybe we can discuss it. Yeah, and maybe one last example of the social infrastructure. They had a kind of improvised theater in one of the settlements, where they enacted conflicts in the settlement. So there was a conflict. They enacted it on the stage. There was it was an audience, and they decided then what to do with this conflict. So kind of a informal jurisdiction or something like that. And the last image, series of photos I show is in one of the most well-known settlements, Bruckhaufen, and you can see different phases of transformation. You can see quite an old settler's house, you see the urban villa, and you see the developers project. So developers come into the settlement, they buy plots next to each other, and they make a commercial project. You know, so this is a quite interesting transformation process that takes place. Yeah, and because I was asked by Sabine to make a statement, I'm not sure. What I can say is that I think when we think about the history of a city, we have sometimes dominating narratives. And these dominating narratives mean that other narratives or histories are maybe neglected a bit. And it's always important, in my point of view, to look at this parallel histories that took place. And I think it was great in the exhibition that you showed arena and something like this. It was not a large-scale form of squatting and so in Vienna. That's right. But I think also in Vienna there were some really, in a symbolic and cultural way, very important alternative ways of occupying space, of squatting, and to use it in a more social way. Yeah, so that would be, I don't know if this is a statement enough, but maybe we can discuss it.
Thank you very much. So Vienna has the better history of squatting somehow, we just learned. And I think that a theater, to have a theater to work on the conflicts that are emerging in a housing project is very interesting. Nicola, I remember one of the things you said on the first time when you were here, which was on the first assembly, that squatting for you and squatting in Venice never means only looking for a place to live, an apartment to live. It always has also a kind of a social meaning, and this is always the purpose, and I think that makes it so interesting for us. But do you want to tell us something about it?
Good evening, everybody. A lot of us just met yesterday, and I'm very glad to stay here and have a discussion. I guess that our activities is a sort of love declaration to the city, because we don't only find some houses for people, but we just make that the people stay in a city that are keeping on kicking out by the citizens from here. Today, maybe I discovered by chance, is the Tourist World Day. Today is a Tourist World Day, so it's amazing. Yeah, there's some Tourist World Day. It's crazy, but today is a Tourist World Day. So there's no some days for the city, but there's the Tourist World Day. You can guess that we are talking about something that is maybe one of the first economy in the world, but it's killing the city with the substitution of citizens with the tourists, and with the transformation of the houses in rent for tourists. Our idea, that is the same idea that I had with Carapaccio, but that we had since 26 years, more or less, because we were born in the 1999. In a city like Venice, that is just fully handed, cannot be enlarged herself in the other place, or you have to go to the mainland. Our idea is that every empty spaces has to be restored, has to be renovated, and has to receive a good change, not to become some houses for tourists, but has to stay and houses for people. The only way of enlarging in this city, it just stopped at about the beginning on the 70s, where the old industry, there was a lot of industry. In Venice, you can think it's very strange where they were, but there's a beer industry, there's a clock industry. So the transformation of that sites of big buildings until the beginning on the 70s, until maybe also 80, 90. We stayed until 90. It was that as soon as the factory, the industry were closed, the municipal council transformed it, make some buildings for houses for living. So we had a growing number of citizens until the middle of 1980, more or less. So we talk about that we reached the 120,000 people, 20,000 people in Venice. Now we are 48,000 people, and we have a loss of 1,000 people per year. That is very, very sad. We try to resist. We cannot make some political of making growing the number of citizens. Very, very difficult. We have a dream. What you talked last minute ago is our dream. When I read mud bricks, I think, oh, okay, finally we have the solution, but we don't have some good municipality in Venice as you had in Vienna. Because we, in the beginning of 2000, we think about and self-restore in our houses. We only squatted houses that were empty since 5, 10, 20 years. So you can think about it, the major of the wall, of the internal and external wall, of the heating system and other stuffs. And it's a very wet city. So we just put some mix of mud, straw and water to build the biological brick that help us in some houses to prevent the wetness. It was the witness of wetness. and it was a good substitution for the normal wall. So we just say to the municipality, and we had a project about it, that we bring them, but they say, okay, I used to eat, for example, like Rebel. But we had a project that where we ask some houses to manage, some empty, completely ruins houses to manage, and say, okay, now we can demonstrate you that the same houses that you want to renovate with 75,000 euro, we can renovate with 25,000 euro. But it's not so sustainable for some industry of the government of Venice that has to pass some houses to the owner of some industry that has to demonstrate that we need more money. And you know, it's not a funny story, but it's traditional way of behavior in Italy, respect the public houses. But we keep on fighting about it, and we try to reproduce the same idea that we had with the squatted houses, also in our life of every day. Experience of Carapace is just that kind of idea. We received places after required to the council. We are an association that we make some official announcement. We participate in an announcement. We receive a ranking where we were at the good position, at the first position for ranking of this announcement. But the municipality gave us some ruin. And everything is official, so we haven't squat anything, okay? But it's just a contract where after you're required, municipality gave you, like as a association, in my my case, it's the Basketball Association. Okay, this is your for 3 years, but we don't help you to renovate everything that you make inside it, every work that you will sustain inside this site. It's your fault. You have to. We don't give you any help, any physical, any economical help. Okay, so we said that's our business. So we want to reproduce what we do in the spotted houses. And this renovation, as Sabine said, is not only a renovation, an urban or architecture renovation, but it becomes a social renovation. Something that is empty in this city. If you fill in with people, with arguments, with stuffs that talks to the people and has a speech of quarter, could transform also the quarter in something real life. Something that Venice is a very old city, you know, there's maybe 60% that has more of 55 years old, just like Italy, right? Just like Italy, of course. But we feel stronger these things because it's one of the fault of the loss of people, because a lot of people die and there's no enough services for family to make growing their children in this city, and so they have to go to the mainland. So we are in an old city, and we try to give some services of quarter to the people. Also services that should have been given by the municipality or by the government. Like houses, right? So like receiving a public houses, but also in our case, just like giving some instruments. For example, we discussed a little shorter yesterday that we have some idea that there's no sites for after school for children. After school, people goes at home, but they don't have some. We have sports, okay? We have something, but you don't. The council doesn't give this kind of services to the children for be helped in math or other things of school. So we say, okay, could not be only a site for basketball players that meet over there. Just try to make something that could be the answer to the lackness of services of welfare that there's no anymore in Italy. Because why there's no services, there's no welfare anymore? Because doesn't take enough, doesn't make you earn money. This is it's dramatic things like giving public houses. A lot of owners in Venice transform their houses that maybe they have received by some grandpa or some parents long ago, and they say, okay, yeah, if I rent to a citizen, I could earn 1,200 euro in a month. But let me think about, if I make some rent for tourists, I can take more or less that incomes in a week, if I am a good owner. So you cannot face this tragically situation. It's very difficult. No one makes laws to prevent or to make some stops. It is the regulation of the city. So our idea is that okay, in the private market it's very, very difficult to make some action, to make some speech. You just cross some borderline. It's very, very, very difficult. But we have thousands and thousands of empty houses, and we cannot leave them alone without anything and in a ruin with mice or some toxic people that goes inside and maybe make some bad things. So we just made some focus that filling some houses, filling some any empty spaces with people, gave a new life to the quarter. So we want to practice this kind of idea and reproduce in every step that we do around the city. Even because there's no project of self-restore, there's no project of self-construction in Venice. They are not allowed by the municipality. Sometimes they produce some announcement of self-restore, but they fall down because there's no regulation or they have too much cost to start. I don't know if you listen. Yeah. So, that's my introducing. Okay, that's what we do.
Thank you a lot. I mean, it's so interesting because we tried to make a project about self-construction in Vienna inside of the system of the whole competitions and everything. And it's really, really complicated because it's against every DIN norm and EU norm and Austrian norms and all kind of norms. So it's really, really, difficult to do it. But we still work on that to be able to do that. Katharina, do you want to make a short statement? Why are you here with the students? What is your goal? What are your desires?
Well, just to let you know, we are here.
Ja, so ein bisschen so.
Why we are here is we studied the last semester the history of Vienna, the housing history of Vienna, but we also learned something about social housing in Hong Kong, Casablanca, and then we discussed all the topics we heard today already. So we wrote your publication and came here very well prepared, I would say. And the last 3 days was basically very interesting because we learned a lot of things. I think what we never can learn in university in this clean situation, and it was done by visiting such places on the Giudecca where we visited this housing projects, this very nice one, and where we met, for example, I think Julia was her name, at Zenobia, also a space from your from your group of students, yeah. And then we visited you at Charabace, and you told us very nice stories and very interesting stories that we don't face in our realities, but it's a very precarious stories of living and affording and how to afford housing and living. But also on the Vaporettos, we were talking a lot. I was talking a lot with the students, and then I figured out that we always think in Austria that we are not having the same problems, but it's also crumbling. It starts to crumble a lot. And while talking, I mean, in Vienna, I think it's fixed very well, but talking about Innsbruck or Salzburg, it's completely different realities in terms of housing, and basically we have the same rents like you have in Venice, in Innsbruck or in Salzburg, and it also starts already in Linz, so it's rising, and all of you, as I understand, already had an issue on renting and is facing these problems. And I was thinking a lot about this, and then I came back to a statement or to an interview which I saw, which is screened on the Film House Europe, which I really can highly recommend, because it's also dealing with this. It's also dealing with this very speculative game, which we are into, and there is a very interesting guy interviewed in the film. It's Aris Kompororoshos Athanasiou, a Greek guy, who is an economist, and he is the founder of a very interesting institution in London. He founded the Institute of Capitalism Studies, which I think is very interesting, and and I want to quote him now because he really explains very well the current economic system very well, and he says we are really part of a completely speculative game driven by a financial system. I refer to the process by which the forces and the imaginary of finance, of markets, have become integral to our everyday lives across the social, the political, and even intimate domains. Our daily decisions are more and more shaped by these priorities. We even make small personal or work-related choices according to the logic of finance. We see life as a constant balancing of risk and opportunity. A clear effect is that we no longer view the built environment as a home, a space where we live, where we meet friends, where we sleep. Where we feel safe, where we feel comfort, we have to see it as an investment, or we feel it more and more as an investment. This is a key consequence of financialization. It's not only real estate actors who see housing as an opportunity for profit. Everyday people now intuitively, so it's in our chain a little bit, understand their homes not just a physical space, but as an asset. And I think, and I was running this space, as Sabine already told, and in 2020, I built up a curatorial framework inspired by Donna Haraway's storytelling for the earthly survival, and I called it Stories of Critical Change. And so now it comes to my desire, or also desire for you. Also, I want to encourage you to follow this, because I think by also now quoting Donna Haraway, you have to keep telling this particular story, not some story in general, but this story. You have to do this, you have to be here, not everywhere. Perhaps it is, quote ended now, perhaps it is precisely the narratives like these that can get stories of critical change, your stories basically, of your realities, and we need, or I ask you, or let's tell us our stories and imagine together maybe we can invent a new system. So, and now I hope that you start to tell your desires or your hopes, or do you want to add something, Sabine?
Yes. So thank you. So maybe our aim is to think how can we not be capitalists. So I mean, I work since a long time about on the way how can I resist patriarchalism. How can I be not sexist, not patriarchalist, and how can I fight for feminism? But the other thing is maybe much more difficult, because as you say, we are so into capitalism. And one of the students told me some days ago from another university, how can I even talk about their life? I mean, they grew up in totally capitalistic world, and they're surrounded by capitalism, which is so different to us, how we grew up. So might be really a big difference about this kind of history. But I would like to give the micro to a student, and that you tell us. Yes, please.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
You asked about our desires yesterday, and then I was thinking about it, and at first a lot of things popped into my head, but then they all kind of led to one thing, and maybe it's pretty basic, but I'm gonna explain it probably too detailed, but I'll just go for it. I just realized that there's, and it's always, I think it's also a desire, because I realize it's always a barrier for me. Like if I present maybe projects or artworks or ways of alternate living or alternative living. Like in university, then I get criticized, and it might, like, they'll say it might not reach your audience. I mean, it's all theoretical, or like when you study, because you're not actually doing the projects practically. But yeah, and so there's always this barrier. But yeah, it's basically that there's this emotion we have. It's fear. And fear of like the unknown, and I think it was an instinct, and we got it, and it's an important feeling, and it's important to survive. So it was like an instinct for survival, and then and then it somehow happened that systems and politicians are using this fear of the unknowable to like divide groups, to spread hatred, and to basically more or less destroy lives. So now it's not a feeling of like a feeling we need to survive anymore, but it's used as a feeling to destroy lives, which is really sad. And then when you like present ways of alternative living, or also in general, like the society, how you also mentioned with men and women, and maybe then women have, like it goes in several ways, but also for this alternative living, like if I want to say maybe we need to, or if we as students want to present projects where maybe you don't have that much space as an individual anymore, but you have more communal spaces, or like also tell people about how like squatting houses works, and how it's an alternative way of living, and new systems that work very individually all around the world, but they work. Like a lot of people are already kind of afraid of it, but it's not their fault. It's like something that came from, I think, from like the top, kind of. And so my desire would be to like communicate all these fears, find spaces again to communicate those fears, and and then like everybody could live together happily. I would really enjoy that. And maybe my question would be like, what are the good ways to get there? And I think in cities where squatting already, or like public housing already happens a lot, where a lot of cultures meet, I think these are already very welcoming spaces that are ready for like new ways of living. But then in Linz, for example, if I talk to people, then it's not like the first, like they don't always see the positive aspects of that.
One thing I could say to this, I think in Vienna you have kind of interesting projects like co-housing, more experimental housing, and it's totally fine, and like pilot projects, and you can see it works. You don't have to fear that they prove that it works. But the main problem for me, also in my perspective, is how to scale it up. Can it be part of the go into the mainstream of housing production and so on? And this is very difficult, and this is also very, very difficult in Vienna, because there are traditions of thinking about things, about how housing works, how an apartment works, two room, 3 rooms, all this conventions. And this is really difficult to come to go into this different scale. And this would be really important. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Thank you for that. I just thought, how big must the pressure be that you become a squatter? I mean, there's the step or the Schwelle that you have to cross. That then it comes to squatting. Nicola, when did you start squatting? Since when? Or how old were you? Or was it just you said, okay, let's squat? Or?
I started I started in 1999. I am a co-founder of ASG, and we're beginning to squat the first empty houses that we found. We always try to observe nature to discover which were the best places to make some squatting, because it wasn't some times of counting of that's the number of empty houses. Now we have a lot of numbers, we have a lot of statistics about it. We started with the relationship that in Venice is very wide and friendly with the neighborhoods. So we observed some closed windows, and we figured out that maybe there was some empty apartment, and we start to talk with the neighborhood, and with the old neighborhood that can have could be the witness of how that houses goes to ruins. And they say, okay, this apartment is empty since 1985, so it's 3 years. We begin to consider only the houses that were empty since some years. First of all, because it was not attackable by the municipal government. They couldn't say, okay, you are stealing some houses that I want to give to the people for after announcement. So we just take some houses that we wanted to completely renovated. There's some panel at the gazebo at Casette. You weren't be there, no, but in our main portrait, like you can see, there's some gazebo with the 2 different pictures. Every panel has 2 different pictures. How we found these houses and how ASC renovated. So it's very like a Instagram meme in the 1999, but it was the truth. We found some completely ruins, not only the breaking of stuffs inside, but also the shit of mice, the rats, and also the witness of people that stay here to have drugs for years and years. So nothing that could take some renovation to the porch. Okay, so for the speech of some minutes before that, the first act that we do when we open some doors of the empty spaces. And we start with a group of activists, a group of students, and group of people that are reclaiming houses and fighting against the first year of 2000 real estate agency that makes some speculation, a lot above all on the students. So we just beginning to fight for the right of students, because they cannot find some house at a low price. Okay, so it's, we consider student in Venice there are more or less 25,000 students between Ca' Foscari and between UAV. So not all of them stay in Venice, but a lot of them are actually citizens. They spend their money there. They help people to live in Venice. They are completely citizens, but they are not recognized as citizens. Why? Because a lot of owners doesn't want to make the certification of residence inside the house because they are dangerous. Because you can guess that the word resident is someone that wants to stay in the city. But the government doesn't want that people stay. Wants some in 3 or 2 days people that stay in apartment goes away. So everything is difficult, not only for citizens, but even for the new citizens, the brand new citizens that are the students, or people that has a graduation and want to stay here for some masters or fall in love with the city, it's possible, and want to stay there. So we try to make some kind of speech at the beginning. So we fight not only for the houses, but for having the residents inside the houses. To demonstrate that people that squat the apartment doesn't want to stay to play or have funny times, but for have a normal life in Venice. And our activities changed during the beginning of the middle of the first decade of 2000. So at the crisis of 2008, a lot of average middle class that start to be poor than before, but enough poor not to have a private rent, but too much rich to have a popular houses. So they were just in the in the average situation that could not have a private rent, but could not require public houses. And these people begin to knock out to our door, and we are ready to make some big steps. A crime step, but they wanted to stay in Venice and they didn't want to go to the mainland. So ASG enlarged them arms with these people. That is actually the 70% of our assembly.
Katharina, I have about 2 questions. You don't hear it, you have to turn it on.
One question is, your group, what kind of professions are in your group together? Are there also architects, also sociologists? And this would be very interesting how this group looks like. And another completely different, not completely different, but we've been here 2 years ago. Also, I've been here with a group of students, and there was our topic abandoned infrastructure on Lido, and we mapped the whole abandoned infrastructure on Lido.
The famous hole at Lido.
Yeah, you know, the Caserta, the Ospedale del Mare, and all these kind of things. Yeah. And it was very interesting how much infrastructure is abandoned. And I'm also wondering, are there projects planned, or do you think of what's Genossenschaften?
Cooperation.
Do you think of cooperation of this would be interesting. Or other developers maybe who are maybe helping out, or who are interested in your needs. Some of them are.
So for the first question, the idea that we had when Andrea, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about the first settlement in Vienna. I think about one of the co-founder of ASC, that is Giulio Grillo, that came here in Venice from Bari and stay here with his girlfriend, and he related to us with the biological brick. He said, "Okay, we can support, not make a complete wall inside, but we can support the normal wall with the biological brick, so the mix of mud, straw, and water." And he is also the planner of the project that we had of self-restore. Giulio comes here for the first assembly. He is also a carpenter of R3B, Biennale. Yeah. So he's one of the founder, not the owner, because there are five mates for that company, but he gave us a lot of experience about just this part. I'm not anything. I'm only an activist, but we need architect, of course. We just needed to make some complete speech, and we have also needed or carpenter or people that are allowed to make some practice of stuff inside the house until we can do so. Everything that we can do, we do. But as you said, as I said yesterday, we just stop until the skills of practice on electrical system or heating system that we call some professional teams that we pay, of course, and give some certification of European laws about the regular practice of the city.
I have a question. That's just, where's electricity coming from? Do you pay for it? Do you just take it?
Well, no, we are in contact with, yeah.
Take it.
Yeah. I can. The second one, yeah. You're living in Lido. You a little bit fall in love with Lido. yeah. That's nice. That's really nice. That's really nice. No, we had some occupation during the festival of Biennale Cinema of the old hospital. It was 2010, more or less. It's a very big site. It's so. I remember when I was children and I make some cut. I was very young. I was 8 years old. My dad, just because I live in Vienna, and I put my my feet inside some bicycle, and I make a lot of blood everywhere. And my dad takes me to the hospital. So I had the memories that hospital were functionally and it was open for the people. The whole is very difficult to make sane because the first idea of renovation of the hospital was created a structure of welcoming in Venice. I don't remember the exact words, but very close to the hotel's welcoming, a kind of school that prepares students to host the people, but like tourism. So that is the direction of everything that is ended in Venice. If it's a building that maybe where the Doge houses of some noble person in Venice will be transformed in a hotel. The old hospital, the closed hospital, will be transformed in some structure that want to teach how to host the tourism. So every idea is just directed. It's not you can think about it. It's not possible. No. But that's the truth. That's the truth. We don't have some alternative about it. It's very difficult. We try. We just make some demonstration. We just put ourselves in 30, 40, 100 people in the entrance of the old hospital to say, no, we don't want anything from tourism here. Just it's better to stay closed. It's better that not open anymore. And we stay with the memories when we were children, and we remember that it was an hospital. But no, we don't think about some discotheque or an hospital. And people, when are in Lido, it's not so easy to take by boat, or it's very grave, the situation. Has to arrive some helicopter that takes the people to the hospital in Mestre, but it takes half an hour, 40 minutes. You can guess that is not a good situation. Not a good situation. People could die because there's not an hospital in Lido. It's the democracy falling down. I don't know. Also because an hospital could serve also for the tourists, because also the tourists could get ill and have some troubles with their health.
I would have a question.
Take the microphone.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
Because you said that democracy is kind of falling down. In a democracy, normally it's possible to de-vote the ruling party. That kind of sucks. I remember yesterday you said that every party kind of sucks and isn't really in Venice isn't really doing anything for the residents. Can you maybe explain the issues here a little bit? Because you said you're almost 50,000 inhabitants still in Venice. And if most of them are really, I would say, pissed off by the situation, why isn't it possible to form a new party, or are there some upcoming parties that gain popularity and that kind of wanna, because at large scale it's for example whole Italy or whole Austria, it's sometimes really hard to establish new parties, but in cities it's often easier because it's smaller and more local. Are there some developments or possibilities, or is it only possible to kind of do the underground work like you are doing?
You have to be louder than
Yeah,
the
the
bells
bells
now.
are singing. That is our Howard also. No, but it's just like romantic that they start to ring when you make some very, very interesting questions. And maybe I have to speak stronger to make me you listen to me. We made a big mistakes like citizens. We just vote to divide it. Not to divide it, but we voted not to divide it. The historical city that has 48,000 people from the mainland that has 200,000 citizens. So it's just the 4-1, okay? Why I say this? Everything goes good until 2010, because the mayor of the city cares about the two different souls, because we're completely different. We're a lot of friends, of course. We're not enemy, but we are completely two kind of lives and souls different. We are in a lagoon. People are in mainland. Once a time, the mainland were only the houses of people that works in the industry in Venice. So it was just people goes to sleep. But little by little, in the last 30 years, the mainland grows up, not only in the urban, in the industry, but also in the social content. And they are 200,000. But until 2010, the mayor cares about both. In the election of 2010, arrived this new, not so new mayor, 2015, sorry, the actual mayor that comes from the country. It's completely thinking in a country way. But it's very smart because it has its own an agency for work. So I give you some work, but I take some percentual or earn some percentual. It's a real crime, a real crime. But okay, and he cares only for the mainland. For the normal lives, cares only from the mainland. For the citizens, cares from the mainland. He declared to the newspaper, Venice is going to die. The future is in Mestre. You can make some Google search. You write Brugnaro, the mayor of the city, and you take some big box of popcorn, and you read it, and you say, and you ask, how can they vote this fucking person? It's but it works in that way because it was so smart to to make some telling story to the people of mainland and say that it's better to grow up and continue to live in the mainland because Venice has not future, but Venice is good for making money because the tourism goes in Venice, not in Mestre. So he's the mayor of two souls, but one city. And the elector, the vote come from the mainland, but also for the lagoon. But he declared, sadly but truly declared that no one could live in Venice, and doesn't make anything to make the people come to Venice and live. You can only take money from Venice. It's not hidden. This kind of speech is not hidden. It's just declared. That's why yesterday, sadly, I said I don't see a good future for my city. I hope that my son, when he will have 20 years old, but it's very difficult, I hope that he will stay here or try to make something. But I know that the very risk is to bored about the city, to be bored about the city and say, okay, there's nothing to do here, let's go away. And people keep on take money from you, from you, from you, from you, from me, from me, from me, from the tourism, okay? Without giving any services to the tourism, because there's nothing but going ahead and down, take some magnets on the shops, having some stuffs in the restaurant, sell cicchetti everywhere, you know. It's just like amusement park, like I say. It's only that now. And we have to say thanks to this last major. Because just a situation that were very, very difficult, even with some left major, that makes some politics of welfare. They care about the last person, they care about the house's right, very, very difficult, in a very difficult way, but they care a little bit. Now, this council doesn't care about anything in Venice, but they care about everything in Mestre.
And is there some separation?
No, we would just make some referendum. Okay, we make some mistakes because I vote for take some one city because I trust in the city. I trust because it's my mate. I have a lot of mates in the mainland. There's no difference, but we realize that we have to make these steps to say no. We want to be without the mainland. We have two different souls, completely different souls. And now it's very not sustainable anymore, another referendum, another vote for divided. Because we are less.
It sounds so sad. Do you students, do you have some desires to tell us?
I'm not a student. That's why.
But you can have desires.
Thanks a lot for the insights. I'm here as a tourist since 30 years. Sorry for it. Coming to the Biennale. No. But what I realized the first times I have been in the flat with an Italian woman, and I had the chance to know about Scandinavia, the problems you have with, about all the stuff. And since started even for Corona, it wasn't possible anymore, or difficult to get find a room in a flat with Italian people. But that would help to get insights of what are the problems. For example, for me, I detest Airbnb, but to have a hotel is sometimes too expensive. So that would be great to have a structure. For example, okay, spotting on Lido, there's a nice vacancy place nearby the Alberoni. I saw it.
We can make some research from that.
Yeah, I would be in it. That was the first point. Perhaps also to think about how to integrate tours, that they get sensibilized for the problems. Also on the boats, that it's not fine to stay on the front because people can't get off and on. I think it could help also. And the second point was what she was mentioned before, co-housing, that she has a feeling that it's not accepted in the university. I often discuss with architects. I'm not an architect by myself, but a networker around and part of Architects for Future, that we have to demonize, verkleinern, get less of surface. Right now we have 55 square meters per person. We need to go down to 15 to 30 to fight climate change, because it's too much of place for people right now. And then people tell me the problem is that architects are paid for the Fläche. I don't know if it's the same in Austria. I'm from Berlin, and so it's a problem in the structure right now also. So it helps. And what you mentioned, perhaps no. That's all.
I have to say no. Because, I mean, that's true, architects are paid by the square meters, but the whole costs are somehow counted by square meters, but it does not matter at all if I spend 300 square meters for 2 people or for 10 people. So it's my decision what do I do with the square meters, but the square meters are always the same, and I don't think that this is the problem. I don't think that, no. And
that's a reaction of architects. They told me.
Okay.
Because also it's they are not interested to tell people, please build less of square meters for your family, for example.
We don't tell people anyhow to build a single family house, so that's great. Not in our ethics. And I think that's so important to, what can we do? We can try to resist Airbnb, but sometimes it's really hard not to take Airbnb, but I try, and I'm rather successful in it. And I try not to fly, and I don't fly, and we can do small things, and I really hope that university is not saying don't think about co-housing projects. I really hope that, but so I think that's a misunderstanding somehow, maybe from several points. And I mean, we have to think on co-housing and on sharing systems and all that. And you come into practice early enough and are confronted with totally capitalistic projects. But you have to have these desires behind you. How can we live different? How can we have less private space and more common space? And how can we find alternative ways how to finance housing? I think there was one for me so interesting point in the self-built houses in the very early settlements. It was that people were building their houses themselves, but they did not build their own house. They built the house for the neighbor and for the other people. And then after they were built, they were shared among. And I think that's so beautiful. And can we have a desire to continue this? Is something of that possible still today?
I think so. Why not? I mean, this was an idea of cooperation and to work together. All the later residents worked together, built the houses, and then they were shared. So, and this is a co-housing type of co-housing that should be rethought today, because co-housing does not mean in that it's not capitalist or not. It depends on the system. If it's a habitat system, a Wohnbausyndikat, which is really a sustainable social idea and for a long period of time. So I think it would be interesting, to go back to this very short period in Venice history when the municipality and the settlers cooperated in this way as you described.
And I think what was also so beautiful in this Viennese settlement movement was that there was also this aim or this right for autonomy. To grow your own goods, to have the possibility to have animals to feed yourself, and also these common goods like libraries, also the educational system that was behind this, and it didn't. I really would dare to say it wouldn't have worked without all this breaking up this all this They had a very clever educational system that Otto Neurath, for example, invented with his isotype, and this was really spread over Vienna. He was spreading a lot of diagrams, very simple stories on really daily life matters, like how many people are working in this factory and this factory is doing this. So it was a very educational background, and so also this was very important also for this democratic system that was developed out of it. And I think our building system is also a big trigger at the moment why we are suffering from all of this. And I think that's also not the universities, maybe it's more the how to say the school system. The school system, I think, is also a big trigger. But we would like to know your desires. You are the future, not we are the future. And really, I would like to encourage you to say some of your desires, because I know that you have very nice ideas.
Not working really.
No, it works, but you have to do like this.
I have to turn it like that.
Yeah.
So,
Now it works.
Katharina, it's like this. So.
Okay.
I mean, it's very interesting because you come from a self-building university and you are doing that. But so the question is maybe how can you scale your project into a normal housing or into a bigger housing complex, a co-housing project, so that it goes away from this small scale self-building things. Is it possible? How could it be possible maybe?
What I would like to add is, I think we always discuss as like people from university and like studying architecture and being architects, and like we are obviously very aware of like the situation. We are also very educated on it, but I think this is like a problem that, especially the housing problem and housing crisis, is something that like really is something that the whole population should be thinking about, and like having a strong force from a broader like the population should be the force that is like, okay, this is not okay, and should be aware of the problem. And I think it has to be a lot of education has to be done to like sensibilisieren, like to make people aware of like who can change something about a situation where we can't just let the people with the most money decide like on the free market how our living situation is going to look like. And I think this is not something that the broad population is like necessarily aware of, you know? Like, does it make sense what I'm saying? Yeah. So, yeah, I think there has to be a lot of education, a lot of discourse be done, not only in a very educated and universal surrounding and setting.
Yeah, maybe we also kind of see it as our like goal, like we could, or some already do, like because we realize that in university sometimes there are a lot of teachers or also students that communicate in a very, like they want to explain things very detailed, and it's always like this architecture bubble and dialogue that maybe the common audience that are experts in other things won't necessarily understand, or also children and younger generations. So yeah, I think trying to learn how to translate this language, or maybe not even communicating everything over just talking, but like making things interactive and so people can hear them, feel them. Yeah, maybe that's something that we can try to do during our studies, and then later on continue to like reach more people and make them aware of it.
I would like to say something. I totally agree with your what you said. Like we need to educate more people in various kinds of ways. But I think it's also an illness of the time nowadays that people are single fighters. So everyone knows not anyone can be an expert in every topic. So I think the key is to like join forces and create projects like those co-housing projects, like housing projects which have a more social effect on the people living in, but with the knowledge of a collective. So I think in Arts University of Linz, it's not like in every other university. We are like we have kind of we're more sensible maybe in working together, in having collective ideas, but I think that's not an average not the average how universities are handling projects and collaborative.
Collective knowledge.
Yeah, I think of like the average person thinks like, yeah, I live in capitalism, and as long as I work hard enough, I'm gonna be able to afford my dream home. And I think a lot of people don't understand that this is not how capitalism works. Like, not everybody. I mean, yeah. I think that this people don't realize that it necessarily needs minds who think collectively, because we're living in such a time of, if I have a dream, I have to fulfill it myself, and that's it. So I think that's the mindset we have.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But we had a very interesting discussion 3 weeks ago, and one session in the afternoon was about sharing economies, and the question what and how can we share. And it's interesting if you start to think what you can share. I mean, I can share a kitchen, maybe. It's a bit unfair because I cannot cook, but I can share a room, I can share goods, I can share maybe the living room, I can share machineries. But it's very interesting to think and make a list maybe of what can we share, and what is then the consequence of it. And what I wanted to say, it's you should use your space of university, because it's a free zone. You can somehow do what you want. There are not so much regulations than outside. The police is not allowed to come into the university. So you should fight for the right of common spaces or whatever inside of university, as long as you are there.
Another question.
Yeah. Mosquitoes.
Sorry. About those empty houses in Giudecca, is there any chance, or is there a clear line to get information who is the owner? Is there something which is really clear, or are there like through? Okay,
but most of all they are from the name of industry. It's I'm sorry. Very friendly chat. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it maybe the 90% are owned by ATER. That is called ATER. That is an industry, a site that manage the regional houses and also the local houses. They're all houses, like I said yesterday, that it was built with some little tax of our grandpa incomes. So they're actually public, completely public. So, but during the last 40 years, they are discussed by this ente, association, institution. That is the institution of houses in the region. They gave some houses to the local government to make them assigned to the people, but they completely owned. And that's one of the excuse between the local government and this institution is that the institution said, okay, I gave a lot of houses, but the local government doesn't assign. And the local government say, okay, I want to assign to the citizens, but the institution doesn't give me any houses. So we are in this unbalanced situation. The other maybe 10% are owned by the local government that has direct the control of some houses, and it's also quicker in assignation, quicker than the assignation of ATER. You mean the houses that you see in Pollack?
Yeah, the ruins, seems like ruins, not really.
But they don't care anymore. But the project that I said yesterday, that's why your question is very, very important. Your desire is that to involve, to show to the people that there are room not only to the collective of the person, but also to the normal people. In fact, we are living in Italy a desperate situation where the left party were able to talk, to make some speech about worker rights, houses rights, welfare rights. And even the people that stay in the public houses vote them and give them vote. In the last 30 years, the left party abandoned this kind of speech, also in the regional and in the local government. And it's a very sad situation. On the map, you can clearly see on the sites, on the website of Comune di Venezia, there's the map of the vote of the last election. You can see that all of the public houses sites, where there's a lot of normal citizens not squatting, are on the right vote.
But that's the same in Vienna.
And all of the left vote are of rich people that stay in rich sites. They stay with the houses of the Grand Canal. So okay, it's a comrade, it's a mate, it's my mate, but it's not the normal situation. What happened till now that the people, my neighborhood, vote the right, and the people, rich people, so we have done a lot of big mistakes. We haven't speech anymore to these people, not to our mates, because our mates just think about it in the same way that I think, but we have to make some step back and talk to these people. It's the only function that has the political, just not to say, oh, we have to make some compromise between speech to the heart and speech to the stomach of the people. We cannot only, just like someone said, talk about our project. Yeah, completely good. We have to keep it on, but we have to make some simple speech to the people, to the simple people, because they are formally the folks that listen to us has to be learned by simple words, not only with project. We have some project because we think to grew with our idea, but it's not enough. We have also to speak to the stomach of the people and try to say that what they vote is not the solution for their situation.
My experience in this kind of discussion is that it's sometimes better to ask questions than to tell them something. Mm-hmm. For example, to ask them about their fears. And I realized that sometimes even people who denied climate change before are open to a discussion after, because they had the feeling that I was interested in what is their main topic in this case. And the other point is a little bit relating what you was mentioning before, that researcher found out that human people don't like change because it's work for the head, and it's important for people who don't have the feeling of self-efficacy, that they don't think that their behavior or decision would change something. And they, in this case, they are very loud, and politicians are listening to them. And I had discussion with German politicians about it. It's perhaps they have a wrong impression of what they could decide without being afraid that the AfD, the right party in Germany, would win. And this kind of reflection made them change his behavior, because he didn't thought about it before. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, I also think that this fear topic kind of, I mean, it's also what the mayor is working with, right? Because I think this one might be empty. No, it's fine. Because they're basically saying, hey, in Venice, you don't have a future. You don't know what the future brings. You should move to Mestre, so you have the fear of the unknowable again. And then also I found out, because I learned that you should tell a story and maybe a utopia in Venice, what it could be, and tell people about the future and how there are alternate ways of living. And I think, and I've tried it, and it's interesting, but I think what's even more powerful, like you mentioned, is when you really not just tell a story or think about a story, but get people to create a story with as a collective or with you together. Ask them what do you want in your future, and then they inspire themselves or as a collective, and then because we're all individuals, everybody has different opinions, but somehow it has to work together. So yeah, that's also what I realized.
It's very interesting because most of us are architects and architecture students, practicing architects, and it's so interesting that we have to want to discuss this, that we need to be more political, and we need to do these methods maybe of storytelling and all these things. It's very interesting. So we might be on a point where the profession totally changes, and this is my hope to all of you, that you will do that. You will not be one of these strange office taking everything, build everything, whatever you get, just to earn money. It's so difficult. It's extremely difficult to survive, of course, and you and we have to take all different kind of contracts to survive, to get an office one, but maybe you have a totally other view of your future. I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that I was thinking about, because you told us that in Venice it's very important to work with the existing structures, the vacant structures, because obviously you can't grow from inside out. And it's in Vienna we have a kind of discussion about how to work with the existing. We at the Urban Design Institute at Technical University had some design studios about how to work with an empty economic university building, how to work with an empty car factory building, and so on. And I think, and maybe this is for students today very interesting to think about how to work with the existing, with the city as an objet trouvé, something we find and we can work with it. Because and to think about vacancy not in the sense of how to make it fit again in the sense of this capitalistic system we were talking about today, but to make something different with it, you know, because to work with the existing structures has a high potential of doing things different. If you renovate something not high cost, some lo-fi and so on, there's a real social potential in it, and that's really interesting. I think we can work on that. What I think would be, as a political statement from an architect view, would be to say maybe we need other kind of regulations when we talk about the reuse of existing structures. Yeah. So maybe, okay, yeah, that would be really interesting.
Definitely, because there's also a huge gap about what is talked about reusing and what is made about reusing, also in Vienna, because right now in Vienna the last big former industrial halls have been teared down, so and one little rest is remaining, so yeah, but I think we all work on that.
Yeah, I always think it's very fun and challenging to like work around regulations in university and like find loopholes and then have the same like structure you wanted originally, but it wasn't allowed because it wasn't fitting regulations. But it would be really interesting in university to also like, because we're all like, these regulations are, you can't work with them, they're very old, you need to renew them, or sometimes they are new, but they're written for a system that we can't work with if we want to have social housing or environmentally friendly housing. So yeah, it would be really fun to just see some change in this regulation policy. Yeah, but I think we're all kind of waiting, but also taking action. But and I have one question, especially for Vienna. Do you have a like view on the new St. Max protest, the St. Max for alle and für alle and against the Halle? Yeah.
Do you have? Sure. Just a moment.
I mean, that's just one example what we were discussing, you know, how to use existing structures, for whom, who is participating in this reflection, how to work with something like that. And in Vienna, there's still a lot to do in this respect. So it's really, in my view, really important that there's a kind of a civil society who is really present, articulates and different views. And I think a little bit the things are changing in Vienna. Because we were discussing today that maybe you, Sabine, you said that maybe in Rome this kind of anarchic or bottom-up initiatives were necessary because nobody would help these people. And in Vienna it's a bit different because we have this tradition and the city kind of cares for us. But this is dangerous also, you know. You have to look very carefully what is really happening, how do we deal with existing structures like St. Mark's, And I have the hope and the feeling that there's a bit of a change. There should be this big Naschmarkthalle, a big hall at the market. And now, I mean, it's still a kind of a hall that the politicians decided to do, but the original project was not realized because of activism and things like that.
Yes, I lost a lot of friends when I was writing against it. So, but that's life. Yeah, they were not really friends. So.
Perhaps I would have some ideas for solutions, like as you spoken about Bestand, the existing. There is a European petition right now, House Europe. It would be good also perhaps to discuss with ordinary people, not architects, people about it. Could be a good solution. And also because you mentioned the regulation point, in DIN-Norm you have the possibility to participate in a Wettbewerb, competition to create your own DIN-Norm, Connect. And I'm also working in the context of Cradle to Cradle, and somebody of the DIN Institute came to us and told us that it's a good way to get in. And at one moment, because architects told me that sometimes you have DIN-Norms who are in the opposite, they widersprechen sich. So perhaps put one, invent a DIN-Norm or propose that all norms who are contradictory to that they are invalid, or the DIN-Norm is valid, which would help fight climate change, biodiversity loss. And I give this idea to whom I want, because I wouldn't have the time to do it, but perhaps to use the means which are existing to get into the system and to fight it like this.
Sorry, I'm on the phone, I'm writing things down.
So the way how you tell it, it sounds really, wow, DIN-Norm must be so interesting. Thank you.
No, I just want to add something to House Europe because I know them very well, and they are really struggling to get this, to get the 1 million, because also it's harder than they thought to get out of the bubble and to reach the normal people or everyday people, and it's not so easy as you think it is. They are really campaigning. They really hired a really nice office to help them campaigning, who did the campaign for the Socialist Party in the Netherlands, for example. So and I think that's also one of our desires should be how to get out of the bubble. Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting thing of the Viennese settlement, but maybe it's similar a little bit or parallel to your. I think our crisis or our needs are not so precarious already or are still. I think, and that's the sad story on this, is that we really have to be in a very big crisis that we can get back to a collective or develop collective narratives again. I think that's really the sad consequences.
Yeah, but we are in a very rich situation somehow.
Absolutely.
We have a job, we earn money, and we have a good apartment. But there are a lot of people, and migration will be such a big topic in future, and so much more a topic. So we should think now about how we live together in future.
Now, as planners, of course, we have to. But
times will not become better.
No, absolutely not. But the question is how to get it out of the bubble.
So, some more wishes and desires. Small last words, no? Do you want to have a final manifest?
A small manifest.
Well, I think it's what we are doing is not believe too much to what I say that it's a dead city, okay? It's not a dead city. There's a lot of people that try to create some aggregation spaces and some new welfare for citizens. And we need that we are in the right way. We are in the right way also for changing, because every time that somebody come and say that we are doing something good, not only with the squatting, okay, because there's a lot of normal people that say thanks to us for what we are doing with Carapace, so how we have renovated the places and the site is something that could stay in our mind and our heart for all the life, but it's only a point of starting and not to finish what we are doing. And yeah, we have to resist, of course. Yeah, that's what we can do. We have to resist because it's truth that the city are going to die in the very, very long future, but we have to resist now and try to demonstrate to the city, because the world recognize what we are doing. The very strange thing is that all the world, with interview, with meetings, with collaboration, and with a lot of intellectual way of have a relationship, knows of us and knows of how we react to the crisis of the houses, to the crisis of the climate change, above all in this city that we are in a lagoon, and we are seeing that the high level of water are growing 1 centimeters by year, so we are feeling on our skin. But it's very difficult to change it inside. It's so easy to give some knowledge of all the entire world, but it's very difficult to change from here, but we try. I will be a candidate for the next election with some little small party. Yeah, no, not from the major, of course, like a councillor. Yeah. You have to take some resident and give me some. Well, yeah, I talked to the to the office of no, but. I think that the future is of the citizens. The only way to change and make some little but important revolution is that to join from the citizen and try to speak not only of project, not only of collaboration, but just to the practice of every day. That's my thing about this city, and I try to keep it on going until I can.
Thank you.
What I could say is that I give a feedback back to you, because I have the feeling when we have this discussion now with you students, and I have similar experiences with students in Vienna. There is I think it's a new generation. I can just say it like this. And there is this awareness that we have to think about the role of the architect or the planner in the future. And I think, as we discussed today, it's quite clear that we have to really get out of the bubble, as Katharina said. And it's really difficult. So I've been just, I don't say what conference, but I was at a conference last week, and I was sitting there and was thinking, it's interesting, but it's so the bubble. And it's frustrating because you think all the experts are talking about things we all know, and that's difficult sometimes. But I have really the feeling that the new generations of students are really questioning this, and I think it's up to you also to challenge your teachers, to really bring in other things and to do the housing projects you want to do and see what happens, and maybe also to organize yourself and bring in other people from outside, activists, whatever, to really get out of this enclosure that we are sometimes in.
My final words is an advice, good advice to you, because our first housing project was the women housing project in Vienna, and it was such a hard work. We had no site, no money, no nothing, and we fought 6 years for it, and it was so much participation and workshops, and all not paid, but of course I had my teaching job and I had money to survive. But it was then finally, it changed my whole life as an architect and as a teacher. It changed everything, and I think it's worth to fight for such an unnormal project and to do it just.
You want to final word?
Okay.
Say something.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us. I really have to say it was very inspiring, and also thank you for talking out loud. I will have to think about it in the future, and also I will. I think we really have to listen to different people, and really, I mean, to listen to, because often we have our own opinions. We can read something, maybe we hear something, but I think listening is really important. And yeah, that's why I'm really grateful that we had this talk today. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm good. Something I didn't mention before, I'm a kind of networker, and in my network was a psychologist, and they're just preparing something about the psychology of living. And on my website, I have collected all these solutions, also a handbook from them, which is free for download. So I give it around if you want. You can take one. It's written in English and German, and easy to understand for non-psychologists.
Okay, then.
So if nobody else wants to say something, I say thank you to all of you, and thank you for filming it, Antonetta, and okay, the next assembly will take place on the 9th, I think, of October, about ecologies of the future.
Thank you.